Joe Orth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right.
Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you. That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast, episode 10. I actually did my hands this time because
I saw you going to do it. And I was like, I don't know. Do I do it too?
man, what's going on?
A little traveling, right, for both of us the last couple of days. Glad to be back home and seeing what's going on with the family. Just got back from this thing called Touch a Truck, and our friends here in a little bit will appreciate it. But it was it's a nonprofit Wilmington Junior League, and it was just in a big parking lot, actually where the Frosty 5K is held. But it was like monster trucks, fire trucks, county vehicles. They had the Lifeline helicopter did a landing, and then you could like go in and touch everything, which was, I think I had more fun than the kids did. I traveled Friday up to Quantico, Virginia to see a friend of ours retire after 30 years of service in the Marines, it was a wild reunion, to say the least. Most of those folks haven't seen in at least, probably 2 years, some upwards of 10 plus years. You know how it is with Marines. Like there's a cold one, or in this case, hours and hours of cold ones. And it's like, you just pick up right where you left off. Yeah, it was great to see some of those people. And it was awesome because, as you know, after we did episode 1, the bromance, Jerry called and we had a long conversation of text messages about how much he appreciated the bromance. And he talked about it in his very long retirement speech, about the bromance that he has with friends from high school and how it's still going on. He says, yeah, we text like 13-year-old girls. I'm like, I know where you got that from. It was just awesome to see some of those folks. Yeah. What have you been up to?
Well, I wish I would have been at Jerry's retirement. I definitely wish I would have been there. I traveled down to Atlanta to do some work with our partner, the Travis Manion Foundation, and had a chance to do something that I've never done before, which was go and volunteer at Meals on Wheels in Atlanta. And it was therapeutic. My mom used to do volunteer work for Meals on Wheels, and I remember being a really young man and kind of watching her do that. And while I was there, I was obviously harnessing her and kind of honoring her and remembering her. But it hit me, I think, outside of maybe the volunteer coach for Little League, that may have been my true, real exposure to volunteerism and the power of volunteerism. My parents volunteered in the EMS space. They were ambulance workers, and eventually my dad became a paramedic and professionally became a paramedic as a paid employee. But my mom's work with Meals on Wheels was not an occupation, and nowhere close to being an occupation. It was a thing that she did to give of her heart. And good gosh, I've been an emotional roller coaster. To give of her heart in a way that was so unselfish, and a great example to me. So to go there and, gosh, man, 30 years, maybe 35 years of separation since the last time I did anything Meals on Wheels. Really cool.
Did you know you were going to do Meals on Wheels, or you just knew you were going to Atlanta to volunteer, period?
Yeah, I knew I was going to Atlanta to volunteer, period. And there was an agenda a couple weeks prior, but I didn't read it in any level of detail. I don't even remember seeing Meals on Wheels on the agenda. Nice. And then wake up that day and get there and fill out a form that says, I waive my right to live. Those forms. They're like, you can have my right arm and my left arm, and I will never sue you, and you can use my picture any way you want for the rest of your life and mine. That form. Meals on Wheels. And I'm like, dude, whoa. And then boom, just hit me. So neat. All right, dude. This is fun. Episode 10. Some say the perfect number to have these guests. I don't know why those people said that. I don't know who they are, but maybe somehow in the next 45 minutes it'll become clear to us. But we have Beth and Jen, but some people don't know them as that. They know them as Ben and Jeff. Other people know them as Jeff and Ben. Some people know them as Jen and Beth. Ben, Jeff, Ben, and I don't even know what their names are anymore. But I do know that they are just powerhouses in everything they touch because, like my mom, they just give of themselves. So unselfish, no expectations for anything in return. And this is going to be fun because they're doggone hilarious all the time somehow along the way. They lead with humor and unselfishness. So, Joe, without further ado, Jen, Beth, hello.
Hello.
Howdy.
How are y'all?
Quite the intro.
I have no idea. Like now, I'm even confused on. Like I've managed to like get confused. I'm like, man, 7+ years later, I'm like, nah, who's who? I don't even know. There's one thing I do know is that like outside of the tie emergency services, we'll talk about all that and volunteerism. There's a thing that four of us really have in common, and it's Miller time. I just feel like we should go right into it.
We were already ready.
I saw.
I've already been going.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. This is the part of the podcast where we invite you to grab whatever beverage you love and just, sit back, relax, enjoy it. If you're tube fed, we ask you to look over at your caregiver or hook it up yourself and say, let's get some fun fluids flowing because Miller time it is. And I love that, Joe. And, these ladies talk about, and everybody who knows the ladies talk about porch time. So we definitely want to get to porch time. But before we go on too many tangents too fast, let's bring it back and ask the question, who are you? Where are you? And why the heck are you on this podcast? And I invite both of you to answer in your own words individually. Good luck with that.
I'm Beth. I am sitting in my office in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. I am the ambassador for the South Mississippi area. I'm also a gang investigator or law enforcement.
And I'm Jen, and I'm obviously sitting next to Beth in our office in Ocean Springs. I am I guess technically I'm the lead guardian angel for South Mississippi. And I'm also in law enforcement locally. So we're doing our thing down here.
And why? Why are y'all on this podcast? Like, why do you
Could you ask us?
There was no better answer, and I was almost hoping like that's what one of you said because you told us to be. That's like
You sent him a text message and said, "Are you free on Sunday?" And we were like, I said, "I don't know. Let me check with Jen. Jen, am I free on Sunday?" And she said yes. So here we are.
Yeah.
On the calendar.
The next time I have a question, I should just text Jen directly, and then we can all circle back once we get permission. Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. Have y'all had a chance to listen to any of our previous 9 episodes?
Yeah, we've been cleaning around the house, and that's been an excellent distraction from trying to do that. So.
Okay. So you kind of understand the flow. You kind of know where we're going. Like there is a rhythm. Okay, cool. So with that said, then, it begs the question. I think you all were strangers to Joe and I in like January of 2015. So many things happened prior to that moment, but I want to get to that moment. But can you kind of take us, through a journey that has been, I don't know, quick upbringing? Where'd you come from? Where you from? Alaska, California, Mississippi, and then just take us in your best way on a journey that gets us to January 2015. And y'all can do it together back and forth, just tell a story. I want to listen.
Okay, so I'm originally from Louisiana. During Hurricane Katrina, I evacuated and I stayed in my car for near a month and moved eventually to the San Francisco Bay Area. In the San Francisco Bay Area, I got an apartment and had a roommate, and that roommate introduced me to Jen.
Yeah. I'm a military brat. So my dad was in the Air Force, and we moved around a bit, but I stayed mostly in Ohio and Germany. After college, I moved out west, eventually ended up in San Francisco, where I eventually met Beth. So, and that was in 2006, so right after Katrina. And then we both worked law enforcement out there for a while. I was a firefighter when we first met, transitioned into law enforcement. She was working at San Quentin State Prison, and we ended up getting laid off from Oakland PD in 2010, and we made that decision to come back down to the South. So I've got ties down here. Obviously, Beth is from here, so that's kind of how we ended up in Mississippi.
Directly after moving here, I wanted to do a full marathon before I was 35. And since I'm from Louisiana, Jen decided that it had to be the Louisiana Marathon, which is a common thing, right? So I, right before then, I was training and doing a lot of training by myself. We didn't know people down here. And I was really kind of depressed and seeing a lot of negative in life. So I wanted to do something that would give back to my community and put some positive back into it. So I did a little research and I tried to find some things that were going to be positive. And we found a charity that just wasn't going to work out because they needed when I emailed them and said, hey, I'm interested in, I don't have anything, but I would like to do something. They said, oh, no, we can't help you because you don't have any money. So we didn't do that. But we went to the Louisiana Marathon, and I was fully trained up and ready to go. And in the expo, we ran into you guys. And so...
And Sean and Seamus.
And Sean and Seamus was there as well. And so we had that same conversation with you guys where, hey, I want to bring some positive into my community, but I want to do it while being active. And Rooster, you were like, hey, you don't need money. You just need time. And at that time, I was working 14 days a month. So I had time. So I did the marathon the next day and had a really neat experience there, which in turn had us both email to request to be ambassadors in this area.
It's those connections that, like, I don't want to say happen on a whim or whatever it would be, right? Like, possibly because we had, in the end, a really good booth placement, right? It was like one of the last ones. As you went out the exit, you were either hitting us or Zip Fizz again, and you stopped and we had a conversation. And 7 years later, look at where we're at now. And same things like we talked about with Sean and Seamus, like the ambassadorships that formed when they ran across and down the country. It's like so much more than a lot of times it is an email, but like when Rooster gets those like 30 seconds with you and like takes your phone and signs you up and it's like, look, it's done, cool, you're an ambassador.
Yep.
People like me are like, oh god, hope this works out. And it did, obviously. But yeah, I do have a question though about the office, because obviously the firefighter background there looks to be a pretty, and I'm pointing to it like you or anyone else can see it. Can you tell me just about that picture? This is a tangent, but I'm curious.
The firefighter one?
Yeah, is that 9/11?
I was a firefighter in 9/11, so I worked for South Lake Tahoe Fire Department at the time. My dad was actually a United pilot based out of San Francisco. So once we figured out that one of the planes had originated Flight 93 that went down in Shanksville was San Francisco United flight, had a moment of panic and had to call my parents. And this is, pre lots of cell phone, stuff, and no idea where they were. They were living in Hawaii at the time. Dad was based out of San Francisco, and make sure that Dad wasn't actually on that flight, and he was not. They were still asleep, so I woke them up because I got woke up by East Coast friends telling me to turn the TV on, and subsequently woke up my parents at the same time because they were 2 hours behind me in Hawaii. So.
I don't know if I've really ever said it, but thank you both for your continued service to law enforcement. It's definitely a cool thing, and like I said, that touch a truck thing, like seeing all the sheriffs and police officers and firefighters. I mean, even being in the military, like there's just that relationship that I think that the two communities have. So much respect, naturally.
Yep, we appreciate it.
The idea that like all these little things have happened in your life, and the stories that you just told remind us that just in a moment of time you can have this intersection with another person, and that when that intersection happens, we have opportunity. We can acknowledge that person, we could like maybe try to get to know that person or listen to that person, or we can just keep moving. And so I'm really grateful that the timing was what it was in January 2015 when y'all were at the expo, and it wasn't our booth that you saw. If the memory serves me right, it was Sean and Seamus that you saw navigating the expo together. Can you take me back to that moment?
They're a force to be reckoned with, the two of them. So we see so much negative through our work. And so seeing that opportunity and asking questions of, hey, what's Ainsley's Angels? Come by the booth, go by the booth, and we're like, this is amazing. Like this whole concept is amazing because it really, brings, like you said, it connects people. It bridges that intersection. There's so much in our lives. I'm one of those people. I think life is kind of like a choose your own adventure book, and I'm kind of dating myself here a little bit because some people probably aren't going to know what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, you get to a page and it says, okay, you want to do this, you go to page 53. You want to do this, you go to page 75. Hey, I want to move to California. She happens to evacuate to California. Like that brings us closer to that page. She wants to do a full marathon. We could have easily done 5 or 6 different marathons, but we chose, the Louisiana Marathon because that made sense to me. And then, we happened to be walking through the expo at the right time and spark up a conversation. I'm one of those, I can talk to just about anybody. Beth can talk to just about anybody. She can also boss around just about anybody. It was a great experience for, I think, all of us. So, and here we are, like you said, 7 years later with a whole bunch of crazy going on.
For me, what really sealed the deal was it was my very, very first marathon. And I was super nervous and very much alone. I didn't have anybody else out there with me. And we all know the wall, right? So I got to mile 19 and I got to the wall and I was miserable. And I was trying to figure out a way to, hey, how can I call her to come get me? How can I get out of here? Like this is no. And over my headphones, I can hear, you're amazing. I just love you. It's okay if you walk. You're great. And I looked over and I learned later her name is Sierra. I saw Sierra being pushed by
Michael
Lawrence. And I thought to myself,
his first marathon,
right.
I think.
And I thought to myself, oh my God, if he can do it with her for 26 miles, why am I going to cry? Why am I going to act like this? If he can do it, then why can't I? And I spent the rest of that race thinking how much I wanted to bring that positivity to my area. That it didn't matter to me how much work I needed to do, that my area needed this kind of positivity in it. And so that kind of sealed the deal for us.
Yeah.
Being able to talk to you guys and know, hey, I didn't need to have a whole lot of money because we ain't got that. We work for law enforcement. But we just needed time and
heart.
Here we are.
Yep.
Yeah, the time and heart is key because you all know, you've seen the organization grow over 7 years, right? And ups and downs, and folks come and go for various reasons. But that's like the big thing that, Rooster, myself, Tanya, Tracy, when people email and say, hey, I want to bring an ambassadorship here, but I'm scared, I don't have X, Y, and Z. And yet, if you have some time and a heart and are willing to just merge those two together, great things will happen. They really will.
Right. Yeah.
What's been really cool to watch from my vantage point is not only how you've brought this positivity to South Mississippi, but really the family that you've assembled around you to move that momentum further and further each year. There's so many names and faces and memories that are popping into my mind right now that kind of capture the essence of, with a little bit of time and heart and desire to include everybody in what you do, folks are going to come on board and have a journey. And I bring that up and I use the word include with intent, because if there's ever been anything that both of you, and I'm looking at you solely right now, Beth, have made the forefront of this journey is to say, we include everybody, and that's just not a bumper sticker. Like every decision I, Beth, make is going to be about whether or not it's going to rightfully include everybody the way that we believe it should be done. And so I just want to take a moment and say my hat's off to you for the example that you've set for all of us. Seriously, for me, you've set an example for me to make sure that my true north stays where it is. My license plate says inclusion, but do I take the time to truly make sure that it's always true north? Yeah, when someone like Beth has a conversation with me to help me do that. So thank you.
I told you she can boss anybody around.
It's the all caps in the emails.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not my fault. I just think that at the end of the day, I have all kinds of friends, all kinds. And when I do things, I want to bring all of my friends, not just the ones who are look like me or act like me or I want all of them, no matter what. And so I think that's really how I live my life, and I want my goal to be. Sometimes I have to give a little to get a little, and I want people to see that if you give a little bit of yourself, then you can get so much back in return. There's a reward. So I might have to make an adjustment in the way I do things or where I'm going, but the return, the reward in it is worth that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it is, because it's that type of attitude and leadership traits that you both show and believe in and act on is what makes your location so special, and why people, like Justin, for example, sign up and they're like, wow, this is cool, and then move and like picks up where he left off, right? Because he believes in the mission, but he got started, through the leadership of you guys, and that was his first real another Louisiana Marathon story, right? But like first ambassadorship that he was a part of, and so that's hats off to you two. I mean, he's a solid dude to begin with, but like you guys could have easily been the opposite of that and could have lost, like Justin when he came to Hampton Roads, for example. So that's direct reflection on you two and the type of awesome human beings that you are.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and are actually the first Joe Orth Award recipients to be on the show.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Well, except for Joe Orth. I mean,
yeah, but since I'm a co-host, I guess I'm here.
I'm just saying.
It's the same thing. Like,
I want to be technical. I'm just saying.
Someone asked me recently, like a friend, like, why did you start a podcast? I was like, I don't know, because Rooster said so. Like,
right. Exactly.
Because I don't know how many years ago, one night we were like, we should have a YouTube channel, and like we were gonna call it like the X channel or something stupid, and it was like just gonna be like complete and utter nonsense. We strayed away from that, but then like when the idea again, like it was like probably like once a year, like he would keep bringing it up, and then finally was like, fine, let's do it. I'm in. Why not?
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Yep. We frequently say that we should be filmed 24/7 because what we do just between us is ridiculous half the time.
Mm-hmm.
The meme conversations and the puns and whatnot. I don't even know. It's hard to explain at this point.
We believe in treating people like family and friends no matter what. So it don't matter who they are. We're going to give them a hard time. So
This podcast often finds itself going on tangents, and that's why it's even in our description. It's a journey of tangents and getting back to thoroughfares. But like, there's a couple tangents I want to go on real fast. Like, the first one I want to go on is I alluded to it earlier. You're talking about I talked about porch time. So like, what is porch time, and why do you think that time is so important?
So we have a lovely wraparound porch at our house that we bought it because we were like, this is going to be amazing. But then we live in South Mississippi, so the mosquitoes own our porch at this point. But after Spread Your Wings, the first year, I think the first year of Spread Your Wings, so 2016, We had, I'm all about the after party. Like, that's why we like TLM. That's why we like Gulf Coast Marathon. You need an after party. So
Your after
spread your
party is
wings.
really the whole thing, though.
Oh yeah, that's I don't. Many of you will know this, but people listening may not know. I hate running, so I don't run. The only time I will run is with an athlete pulling me, because I can't run by myself. That's just ridiculous. There's no reason to do that. It's punishment. Like, it's stupid. But anyway, so the after party is the only reason I sign up for races. So I made sure we had an after party and got a sponsorship from one of our local beer distributors. And, so we had some, basically your version of Miller time. But after the first race, we had a lot of food left over, and we had a lot of adult beverages left over. So we invited everybody back to the house and unloaded like 3 coolers worth of stuff and sat on the porch and just communed and told stories and got to know each other a little bit better, because a lot of the people that had come to the race, we knew, them through Facebook, them through, touching base just sporadically at races, but we didn't know them. And so that's become a tradition now after Spread Your Wings is we all go either back to our house, or now we've got our friend Amber's got an awesome pool area and back deck that we can go to, and whoever wants to come, we'll finish off the leftovers from the race and just sit and get to know each other better and catch up if we haven't seen people in a while. And so it's awesome. We love porch time.
It gets referred to all the time by the caregivers, frankly, the caregivers that get a chance to go to your porch time. Every time I run into one of them, they're like, well, they want to know about when there will be this chance for porch time. And you nailed it. You said, I think you used the word commune. Commune. That's a great word. We just sat there and we communed. I love that. I really love that. We had Christy on for episode 9. And she talked about porch time more than once, so much that I think even in the editing, some of the porch time talks got moved out. Because when we were done, her episode was like an hour and 25 minutes, and what we published was like 56 minutes. But anyway, right. I say that because like one of the things that she brought up that really, really kind of drove home the power of the porch time was, when you take time to listen to another person's story, you then have this way that you can connect on that story, and then it can build the relationship to go so much further. And I thought that was profound, but so simple at the same time, right?
Absolutely. We're more alike than we are different, So, my experience as a person is going to be vastly different than, the majority of the people I come in contact with. But we've all got similarity somewhere. And so, finding that similarity by just listening to each other, that's a concept that I bring with me to work. That's a concept that I basically, it's just, one of the principles I live by. So, and some of that is you learn that, sometimes sitting, drinking adult beverages and BSing.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that version of porch time probably, I almost say damn near every episode, where we talk about like destination events, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's TLM or Sunset, when Christy opened up her house for commune. I think she even used the same word, or Marine Corps Marathon and Ragnar's and all these things where we go there for the race, but that's really like the last thing on the agenda, right? It's all about the socializing, and you all down in the South, right? Your I-10 corridor folks do it really well, for sure. And I think I truly believe that's what draws, the angels, runners and riders alike, to these events. The 5K or whatever race is an added bonus. But yeah, that communing, the porch time is why people go, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to discredit the small races either, though, because we take the time, because that's something we enjoy doing, and we want other people to do the same, that even if it's just as a small, I've seen you in the grocery store, that person has someone that they can connect with. That I believe in the human experience. So I want to know people's stories. And you can learn a lot about a person in that 30 minutes you run. That's what you do, is you visit and you talk and you get rid of your day per se, but once you have that experience with that person one time and you trust them, then you can do that in the grocery store, or you can do it after a small local 5K where you can sit and visit and tell them what's been going on with your week, or your experience of when you had, your brand new child was diagnosed with autism and how alone you felt. But you have someone who can hear that story and understand where you're coming from and even tell you, hey, now you're not alone. We have this Ainsley's Angels family all over the world. You're not alone. Just reach out. We're going to come help you. And that's one of the things that I enjoy, is the human experience on a positive level, I guess I should say.
Oh, for sure. And that, like, the idea of like talking to someone during the race, whether it's someone you're running with, alongside, the rider, if able, is, we get people that ask us all the time, well, I'm not fast, or I'm slow, or whatever the, speed analogy may be. But it's like, hey, just, if you're out there for, it doesn't matter, 18 minutes or 5-6 hours, if it's a marathon, I mean, yeah, you have to move, but you might as well have a conversation of some form. I mean, that it's a perfect opportunity to make a new friend, right? And then family, or just, catch up. Like, hey, maybe I haven't seen you in a while. What you been up to? Well, we got X number of time. Let's have a conversation. I think that's definitely a huge positive of our community, for sure.
Beth, earlier you mentioned, your journey prior to finding San Francisco and how alone you felt. The aftermath of Katrina and in your vehicle and trying to figure this out, and then you move. But just the fact that you were able to feel that level of alone, of solitaire, of isolation, and how amazing that can transcribe to the people you're meeting through what we do together, who have had those similar journeys of isolationism and of sadness and of depression, and how powerful it is that once you can relate to them and have that connection point, it doesn't matter if it's because you just lost your home due to a hurricane, or if you feel isolated because your friends disowned you or don't want to reach out or don't know what to say because your child has a diagnosis. Alone is alone.
Right.
You would never be able to have that empathy or perhaps that compassion that you have had it not been for those rough times. Something that I think we should remind ourselves, that ride those doggone highs as long as you can ride them, but they're not going to last forever. And whenever you come off that high, how do you find the energy and the courage and the family to help you get back to the top of the wave?
Question, because I wanted to circle back. So I knew that you evacuated post Katrina, and I knew that you moved to San Francisco. I didn't know that you lived out of your car for a month. Was that in Louisiana, or is that just in transition to San Francisco?
So when I left Louisiana, we stayed in a hotel for about a week before Rita came in, and I ran out of money. So I had to decide, either I was going to use what I had left on my credit card account to pay for gas to relocate so where I could work, because I have worked and taken care of myself since I was 16. So I had enough money for gas to get somewhere and food, or to continue to live in a hotel and hope there was work close by. So I opted to move, because how do I find work in a place that's devastated at the time with what I was doing for a living? So instead, I lived in my car going up the West Coast side until I found a spot that I can stay in San Francisco. And I had a friend who his mom had a throw-out bed in her gym that he said I could have. And so I stayed on that cot for about a week before I had hustled up enough money And by hustling, I slung coffee, so people don't think I was like dealing dope or anything, because I wasn't. But anyway, I served coffee on a college campus for about a week when I scrounged up enough pennies to find a little, garage that was converted to an apartment. Anyway, for a long story, yes, I stayed in my car for close to a month traveling up that way.
And then how long from arrival in San Francisco till your friend introduced you to Jen?
There's a debate on when we actually met.
Oh.
But that's a whole other story. That might be an offline story.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so we actually met at a bar. It's,
That's not true.
totally did. She just doesn't remember.
Didn't.
But anyway, I digress. We, in true, I guess, lesbian form, and you can edit that out if you need to, but the community is very small, and we have a running joke that you will get a U-Haul within like the first or second date, and you guys move in together. So that's like a running joke in our community. And so ironically, I was helping my ex move into the apartment building that she was staying, or the apartment she was staying in, and we met at a U-Haul place picking up the truck because I had to drive the truck.
Okay, so the real story is her ex I met first, and we were roommates, going to be roommates. And so she was like, hey, I'm going to hook you up with my ex. And I'm like, okay, whatever you say, right? You're crazy. We're supposed to be friends. You're not hooking me up with your ex. You're weird. And her and I go to this U-Haul and swing the door, and she's standing at the counter, and I looked over at my roommate, and I'm like, hey, I don't need your help. I'm going to hook myself up. Thanks. I appreciate you. And then from there.
16 years later, here we are.
16 years later, here we are.
That's...
There
I wasn't
is
expecting that.
there is nothing about that that's getting edited. Thank you so much. Nothing, not even a single syllable. Thank you. And so I'm left with this in conclusion. Jen says you met in a bar, and Beth says you met at the U-Haul dealership. And therein lies the difference in the story. So I'm going to pull this damn string. Tell me more about this bar encounter, Jen.
I don't even remember.
I was meeting some friends, and she was there. Her ex from New Orleans had actually already moved out there. And I was meeting up with one of my friends who was meeting up with her ex and brought her with her, and here we are. So we actually met going to what was then and is now a defunct bar, is no longer there, but it was the only women's bar in San Francisco, which seems absolutely bizarre, but now there's not even one there. The Lexington Club, it closed down several years ago, but it was a great little dive bar, and that's where we were going. And she doesn't remember it, and I don't know why, because she wasn't she hadn't pre-partied, so I don't understand why she doesn't remember it, but I distinctly remember it.
I don't know, irony, whatever it is, that Leanne and I have a similar-esque story. So, met and went to high school together and dated for a short stint, but then she went a year grade-wise ahead of me, so went off to college. I joined the Marine Corps a year later, didn't talk to each other for 4 years. I was home on leave in Virginia Beach at a dive bar. Lynn Haven Pub, shout out, big sponsor for Hampton Roads, with my best friend Jam. And somehow, before I got home, Jam had ran into Leanne, and he was like, yo, Joe's going to be home, and y'all should hang out. And she was like, holy shit, I haven't talked to this dude in 4 years. Well, she was on a date with another dude named Joe.
There might have been a date involved on mine, too, but...
Yeah, and left that date, and then we ran into each other at the bar, and now 15 years later. So yeah, dates and bars, and there's no U-Haul involved, but very similar.
I mean, there's always a U-Haul involved in our
The love that
put that out there.
The love that can happen at a dive bar.
Oh yeah,
or U-Haul, whatever.
So I was also at a dive bar in 1996, and if anybody wants to hear that story, email podcast@ainsleysangels.org, because we don't have enough time in this episode at this point in the
Right.
episode for me to tell you about the night that I saw Tanya McGee, and who is Lori's cousin, and asked her how Lori's doing. The rest of that story, perhaps on a future episode.
Stay tuned.
That's right.
Well, that's fun, man. I love that. I appreciate y'all sharing that. And a classic example of, four friends here having a conversation and just kind of naturally letting it go where it goes, and eventually getting so many pieces to each other's journey that we didn't know about each other before this conversation started. I feel like I know you even more. I've always in my head thought of both of you as my sisters in South Mississippi, but like now I'm like, shit, they might be like something more than sisters in South Mississippi. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, that was fun. That was cool, man. I appreciate that. There's so many other things that as I was preparing for today that I wanted to talk about. I do have to ask this question because Christy said we should bring it up. Carly, Christy's daughter, Christy said about Carly that Carly picks up angels along the way. And that apparently there's a story that you all would know from Mississippi Gulf Coast Marathon or Spread Your Wings where Carly picked up angels along the way. So, Christy, I asked the question. Now it's up to Jeff and Ben to tell us about it.
So I've been pushing since 2015, and I usually always push with a team. But for Gulf Coast Marathon, I was lucky enough to push Carly solo. Now, I was extremely nervous because I had never pushed Carly before, but nonetheless, it was great.
It was a half marathon.
It was a half marathon. And so here, our half marathon is completely flat pretty much the whole way. And so Carly did great. She's, hey, there's water over there. Can we go swim? And it's December. No, Carly, we got this. And
it runs the beach, in case you want to know what the water is. It's
straight
completely down US 90 on the beach. So
you get to see the sand and the water the whole way. It's beautiful. Anyway, so not to make this a super long story, but nonetheless, so I'm just me, and we're doing our thing. And at mile 11-ish, you go over an overpass. And this overpass, especially after running flat land for 11 miles, is, it is not fun. And so I am doing my thing, and we're going up this overpass, and I'm talking to Carly, and I'm like, all right, Carly, we've been doing really good. We're gonna get this. This is gonna be a thing. Okay, and I get about, I don't know, a third of the way up, and I'm like, all right, Carly, I don't think I've got this. I think we're gonna have to walk for a second. And she is just giggling and thinking I'm funny, and go. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a friend of ours from the community, his name is Scott Lang, he comes on over and he puts his hand on the chair next to mine, and he doesn't say a word. He just pushes. And him and I go up this hill together, and we don't say anything. And we get to the top, and he says, okay, you're good? And I said, yes, Scott, thanks. And he said, all right. And Scott left and went about finished his race, and I continued on mine. And so it was a great day. And so then within the next year, Scott was diagnosed with cancer. And he had been part of the Ainsley's Angels family prior to that, but not as much as some others. Not that we're ungrateful for him, because we are extremely grateful for him. But to turn it back around, that day he helped me through Ainsley's Angels. We were able to continue to help Scott be part of the community he was a huge part of, even when he was unable to run on his own accord. And so Scott was able, Carly bringing in her angels, she was able to bring in Scott, and then Scott was able to continue on even up until his last day, which to me was a huge thing.
Yeah, so he rolled with us the next year.
Yep, in the chair rather than, because he was so far along in his journey with his diagnosis that he was unable to. And I think that was his last.
That was his last race. Yeah, he passed away shortly after. So.
and his family was able to come out and cheer him on like they had for his Ironman and all of the other great accomplishments he had. And he was able to, cross another finish line. So it was a good day.
Yep.
I hope that answered your question.
It more than answered my question. There's I almost have to just hit pause because wow, it's strong. Because I'm looking over at Joe and I'm thinking, dude, we got so many stories like that, and you don't even realize the power of the number of stories like that we've been able to all experience now. And like Christy said, Carly doesn't just sit in that chair.
Mm-mm.
Carly has purpose, and if that story doesn't just hit you in the face with the level of damn purpose that our athlete riders have on that course, that is so much more. I mean, earlier you're talking about Mike and Sierra, Beth.
Mm-hmm.
You were ready to quit, but Sierra's like, no. I mean, it's together we shall. It's together we
Mhm.
shall in every sense of the phrase. So,
Absolutely.
wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we very similar stories, right? With such a terrible disease
Mm-hmm.
that we've had across the organization, where very, very, very similar, right? Runner can't run, turns rider, and
Mm-hmm.
finishes their running journey as a rider. And it's just special in the end, and it goes back to inclusion. Just let's roll.
Yep.
However it is, and yeah, the power of that rider. Yeah, I mean, I how many times I pushed gauging, as everyone here knows, right? Go, go, go.
Oh yeah.
Been near other runners, and they hear that, and they're like, because I'm always sarcastic, like, I am going, bro, like, man. And then they're like, man, yeah, we got to go, let's go. And I'm like, yeah, see, there you go.
Yeah.
It definitely
Molly and her gangster rap.
We're about that gangster rap life.
yeah.
We have to apologize to everybody around us. I'm sorry if you really like some music.
There's so many, man. I mean, gosh, I wish we had the time for you to tell me a story about every one of your riders, because I know both of you have stories about everyone. You mentioned Molly, like Miss Molly, Miss Mississippi, like the very first rider ever, and she's danced between Central and South Mississippi, and her mom and dad wouldn't have it any other way. There's a race, my daughter's going, and she's going to be included, and she's going to bring her music. Love Molly and Logan, for gosh sake, I can't wear my.
About Logan. We can talk all day long about Logan if you'd like.
I know.
You'd have to hit the explicit button on that podcast though for that.
I think it already is, actually.
Oh, okay.
Good to know. Look, if anybody out there is interested, Logan is a good dude. He's single. Somebody is going to be one lucky girl.
If you can handle a jarhead.
If you can handle a Marine, that girl is going to be one lucky person. That's my goal in life, is somebody's going to see Logan for the amazing guy that he is.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I'm married and don't play for his team, but he's still an amazing dude.
Like, that might be the best, like, we've done, like, the sponsor pitches and, like, race pitches, but, like, pitching Logan to, like, find a bride is
I'm just saying.
He's like our little brother. Like we said, we treat everybody the same. So
it's not like it's not something I wouldn't say to his face.
No, absolutely.
The beauty of this conversation is it naturally went from some really, take a knee, let's dance, let's really feel each other in this conversation.
Yeah.
And then the second I said Logan, we just transitioned to this lighthearted conversation with purpose. Logan, my man, Semper Fidelis, brother. We're gonna have to include a picture of him in some of our pictures as we advertise this podcast. Logan's solid, and I'd love to get him on. So we need to work with both of you to help us figure out a way to do that. For those of you that don't know Logan, he has a lot to say, but sometimes he has a little bit of a challenge articulating it, and so he might need a little bit of angel love and help to get him on here and have some fun. I think we should make it a mission to figure out how to do that at some point before the end of 2023. So got a little bit of time there.
Yeah.
Ladies, I think we're at a point in the episode where we have to transition to really asking y'all like what's next? Like what as you look at the week ahead, the month ahead, what are you thinking about? What's on your calendar? What types of things are next for y'all?
We got a race this weekend, so this coming weekend. And then we're going gung ho for Spread Your Wings in September. So we're changing things up a little bit and doing an inclusion fest this year, which I'll let Beth kind of explain how she envisions that, because it's totally new this year. It goes off the mindset of let's have an after party too, but there's a purpose behind it besides just the after party. So
yeah, we're definitely in the throes of Spread Your Wings and Inclusion Fest. So we're planning all that. Anybody who's interested in sponsoring, hit us up. Also, the Inclusion Fest part is something that is brand new. So I have a friend who just had a brand new baby. He is the most adorable thing. His name is Fen, and he was diagnosed with spina bifida. So as a brand new mom, she's not only dealing with the mom issues, but she's also dealing with all the resources and things she needs to know about spina bifida. And my thought process was, this mom shouldn't have to do this alone. If I could get businesses and services to come out once a year and show what services there are for the community at large, but more towards the special needs community, then this mom wouldn't have to feel so alone. She could go out and meet other people, see what's out there for her or for him, and have the community be much more inclusive. With that thought process, we're all going to also have a DJ and food and activities. We're going to have an activity area that's IEP included. So things that are for folks who are in a wheelchair and for folks who aren't, for folks who have a mental disability and for folks who aren't. And so how can those two groups play together instead of just have that person sitting on the sideline watching their peers play? They should have the opportunity to play as well.
And on the flip side, we're also trying to get businesses that have employment opportunities, to realize like Beth just did with the new mom with Fenn's mom, who works with her at the sheriff's department. We brought writer Jerry, who wants nothing more in the world than to be a police officer. And so he's got spina bifida as well. So we brought him, his mom brought him to the sheriff's department, and Fenn's mom and Beth showed him all of the opportunities that he can do at the sheriff's department that aren't an issue for him because he is, in a wheelchair for mobility. So, it opened his eyes to a lot more aspects of law enforcement, and it helped Fenn's mom really see, there is a future out there, because she's extremely overwhelmed at this point. This is her first child, and to have a diagnosis, on top of it all is, pretty overwhelming for her. So I think for both of them, Jerry's mom was like, okay, well, he's definitely going to be in law enforcement now. Like, if we wanted him not to be, it's not an option anymore. So,
and we also showed the sheriff's department that if you open your mind just a little bit, your opportunity to hire people is so much better if you are open to the thought of making yourself a little bit more adaptable. If Jerry comes in and they see him and he is smart and he is intelligent and he's got everything going else. And he's just like me. And so why can't he do this? And so it's threefold. We help mom, brand new mom. We convince Jerry that that's what he wants to do, whether his mom likes it or not. And then hopefully open the eyes of the department for them to see, hey, there are other people we can hire out there besides just this one community we've been looking at.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we talked about that a little bit last week with Christy, and the same thing of going back to, the 90s and the ADA, right? And,
Oh, yeah.
and like how slow it is slow, right? But with individuals like you all, communities are going to be all inclusive, right? Because you're fostering that environment, and hopefully the sheriff's organization and the Starbucks or whatever you want to, business you target, realizes that our riders can be your employees as well. So that's awesome. And the idea of the Inclusion Fest, is even cooler, right? So September 3rd in Biloxi, right?
Yes.
Biloxi,
Yeah.
yes.
In Biloxi. We'll make sure we put the link in the description, and then as you guys share this throughout the community, South MS at Ainsley'sAngels.org, if you're one of those businesses that wants to participate in some way or another in this amazing event in the beginning of September. Jen and Beth are your gals.
I'm pumped. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And that's September 3rd, Inclusion Fest. So there's going to be a 5K, and the Inclusion Fest is happening at the same time. And that 5K is over, and the Inclusion Fest continues until the city ordinance tells us we have to leave. And it's all going to be on Saturday, which is going to be in Labor Day weekend also, correct?
Yeah.
So take your
Wonderful.
vacation to the coast.
I love that. I love that. And if those companies down there in doggone Biloxi are not looking at this as an opportunity to get people from all over the Gulf Coast region to their area, they're missing it. What an opportunity. I love this. So, Beth, you're first on the spot. Here we go. What is your weekly word for the week ahead? And it doesn't need to be one of Rooster's silly 165 weekly words for the past 7 years. Just from your right out of your brain and heart and through your mouth. What is the word and why?
Open-minded. Because I think that if we open our mind a little bit, and instead of trying to make people see things the way we see it, and we just see it from their point of view and be open to what they have going on, we can gather so much more. We can hire different kinds of employees. We can have different types of friends. And so bring a little bit more joy into our life instead of such negativity by only seeing things through one lane, one area. So open-mindedness.
And yeah, that's perfect. And when you think you're next, you don't even know. I like changing it up. Joe, what's your weekly word?
Yeah, I think you actually just said it. Changes, not necessarily just the Tupac song, but just I got some change going on personally and professionally that good and or bad, but just embracing it. Change isn't always bad. I am sometimes fearful of it, but not necessarily in this case. So just taking it with strides and figure out where it goes from there.
Good.
You could play that as the outro, changes. Then it would be really explicit.
Yeah. I'm going with adventure. I think, I sometimes have to remind myself when I'm stuck in the mundane is that, life is an adventure and it's what you make it. And to piggyback off of Joe a little bit, change is inevitable. But if you come at the mindset that it's an adventure, then that change is a lot more acceptable, and it's going to lead you to the next spot and the next interaction and the next opportunity. So
My weekly word is going to be for the week ahead and really for the rest of April. It's going to be ripple. Be the ripple. Every one of you have been the ripple in your journeys. And so what can we do this week to be the ripple? How can we get people into one spot in order to see opportunities for employment? How do we be the ripple? Well, we have an inclusion day, an inclusion fest, and we invite all the companies. And that day that John learns that there is a chance that he can be whatever he ever dreamt of being is the day that the inclusion fest was the ripple, the rock that went in, and then everything followed thereafter. So ripple. I don't know. I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do with my hands.
I was like,
there's a lot going on there.
yes,
You know what? I got enough.
he's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here. The structure of this building has reached its capacity.
find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.
To all our listeners, don't forget at the end of October, Ainsley's Angels is an official charity partner of the Marine Corps Marathon. So if you would like to ride or roll, email Joe at ainsleysangels.org. We still have spots available. Training plans kick off in about the next 6 weeks, so there's a little
June
bit of time,
27th.
but don't delay. Joe at ainsleysangels.org if you're interested in participating in the Marine Corps Marathon.
And we'll be there.
June 27th is when your training plan begins, sir. June
Go.
27th.